Jillian here has been founding businesses and helping them grow from the age of 12. I'll let you do that part. Okay. Well, without further ado then, Jillian Morris.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm really happy to see such a big room. This is also my first time really presenting TripCommon in any way, shape, or form, so please be kind, but also constructive criticism is great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about founding a travel startup as a whole, because I think most people here are interested in either doing that themselves or working with people who are. So I've definitely learned a lot of things since I started doing this about 9 months ago, and I figured it would be useful to share them. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell a little bit of the TripCommon story. I'll tell a little bit about what we're doing and how we've evolved, because even since we put up the meetup group description, we've changed. So that's the nature of startups. So I'm glad you're here, and feel free to interrupt at any time with questions and things like that. Just in terms of getting a sense of who's here in the audience, I'm curious if anyone identifies with any of the following statements. So,
oh wait, I'm sorry. Somehow I forgot. We have to go around the room and introduce ourselves. Let's do it after. Let's see how it goes.
There's a ton more booze in the fridge, so
maybe it's too big.
Let's do it after.
One of my favorite parts. We'll do it after.
I think this is the best idea. Well, I'll say your name at once. That's really good. Okay. Okay, so you can raise your hand. You think travel is amazing, and you travel more than 3 times a year. Okay. Virtually everyone? That's good. Okay. You have a college education. That's pretty much everyone here. Yeah. Okay. Better travel than most people you know. I think that's still a sizable majority. Okay. Bonus points if you've used any of the following applications. You can just go. There's like Where I've Been. That was a Facebook app. TripAdvisor's Facebook app, which is, by the way, the #1. Is the second most popular Facebook app, actually, surprisingly. Or any of these things. You can go down. There, the Where I've Been, the TripAdvisor, any of these things. Have any of you guys done these? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, this is actually really cool. Jemray, he works for Branch. If you use TripIt, you can do a visualization. This is the airports that I was at last year, which I thought was really cool. And I feel like if you're a TripIt user and a travel nerd, you might enjoy this. So anyway, okay. So these 3 things, and there's another. Okay. So you've done something entrepreneurial in the past, whether it's like being a paper deliverer or whatever. Yeah. Anyone raise your hands? Okay, good, yeah. So, maybe you couch surfed, maybe something like this. You're thinking of doing a travel startup, and you know that you don't need everything that everyone else has. You don't need the corporate job and the security, okay? And you think travel's a really big market, which it totally is. Okay, congratulations. You are not a traditional travel consumer, and this is like something that a lot of people don't get. They think, oh my god, I really want this to exist, but they don't know how big their market is, and I think that's something that's hugely important. And if you try and sell your brilliant travel startup idea that you would use to investors, you're probably going to get a reaction something like this. This was kind of my experience when I first started talking about TripCommon. I found, sorry, by the way, I'm a total GIF nerd, so you're just going to deal with a lot of those, I'm sorry. There are a lot of interesting things about travel. We can skip over this. I mean, but this is really important, realizing that you are not an average travel consumer. Most people travel less than 3 times a year. Most people don't have a college education. A lot of people are a lot less mobile and a lot less flexible than you are. So really make sure you keep that in mind if you're going to go down this route. Quick side note, these are just some terms that I'm going to be throwing around, and a lot of people in this room probably recognize them, but just in case you don't, I'm going to run down them really quickly. GDS, Global Distribution System, these are the guys that power all of the back end. They keep track of the fare and availability data for all reservation systems, hotels, cars, and crucially flights. Then OTAs, so Priceline and Expedia, these are the guys who the retailers that actually sell you your travel. And meta search engines who are, they lay on top of the OTAs, they take their data and, aggregate it, help you find the best deal. VFR travel, so visiting friends and relatives, this is the #1 type of travel out there. This is the reason most people travel. And it's not easy to make money on VFR travel. So just another thing to keep in mind. TNT is just travel tourism. Okay, so why it's hard to make money in the travel industry, despite the fact that it's a huge industry. Like I said, most people take fewer than 3 trips a year. There are also giant market incumbents that you're going to be fighting against, and they don't necessarily want all these startups. They don't want to share their data. They don't want to make it easy for you. That's changing to a degree because they've realized that innovation.
Can you give us an example of what a marketing incumbent means?
Oh, okay. So I'm talking about the giant companies, the Pricelines, TripAdvisor, etc. of the world. Also, we're probably all used to booking travel online, but less than 30% of the world is. I mean, in the US, it's greater. It's closer to 40 or 50%, but anyway, just something to keep in mind, less than a third of the world. GDSs are a total mess. I'll say more about that in a second. Also, people, when they're searching for travel, have a really, I would say, irrational attachment to low price. They'll search for like 3 hours and they'll find something that is $5 cheaper and they'll feel like they got great value out of that. And I don't know, I feel like time should be valued and service is valued. Anyway, so yeah, this is just an example. For example, business travelers who you think would actually value their time a little higher, this is the #1 reason, the most important factor in choosing your travel agency is the lowest rates, not the highest level of service. But I thought that was surprising. So, small note on the GDSs, which a lot of people in the industry like to vilify. They kind of have their cake and eat it too, and they're kind of evil looking. They were originally formed as consortiums of the world's airlines to keep travel and availability data centralized. In the financial crisis in 2000, they were largely spun off from the airlines and became independent entities. And since then, they have been having their cake and eating it too, in the sense that they have essentially monopoly control over a crucial part of the market, and they charge fees. Airlines really hate them. Most people really hate them. The story is always more complex than it appears on the surface, but GDSs are tough to deal with, and they also have, because they make so much money, they have very little incentive to innovate and have been very quick to sort of raise the barriers of entry to startups and things like this. So on the other hand, they are also changing. There are a lot of people at the GDSs that are trying to reach out to startups now. So if you're interested in that, I can talk more about that, but go on. So I've said a lot of bad things, and before you all quit your dreams of doing a travel startup, there are a few good things to keep in mind. So people are traveling more often. This is a trend worldwide. Not only are people in emerging markets traveling in unbelievably greater numbers, the number of trips abroad from Chinese residents is growing 20% year on year over the last 4 years. I mean, it's gigantic. Yeah, I mean, it's growing faster than the economy as a whole. It's projected to continue to do so as more people globally sort of reach middle-class status. It's also definitely moving online, and that's a trend that is not going to change. This is a quick question. So, business or leisure, which do you think is a bigger market? Anyone?
Leisure.
By passenger or by revenue?
By revenue.
Business.
Okay. It's actually 76% of spending is on leisure travel. Again, another sort of, I was surprised by this as well. So again, market sizing. You can tell I've been talking to investors. They always want to know how big the market is. So yeah, and again, gigantic market. U.S. spending alone, $103 billion, projected to grow at least 3% this year, and worldwide even higher. And also there's a tremendously fragmented market. People are visiting 22 websites on average before they book something. You know, if you can solve any small part of this process, there's potential. So average traveler visits 22 sites prior to booking. I think there's also just gigantic potential in the social space. So this brings us to TripCommon and what we're working on. And I'm going to tell a quick story because it was kind of bizarre. Oh, well, kind of bizarre. So yesterday I got off the bus. I came down from Boston, and this girl asked me for directions. She was going to East. We came into Penn Station. She was going to East 11th Street, and she was like, I was like, oh yeah, you just take the subway here to here. And she was like, actually, I've never taken the subway before. I don't really know. And I was like, oh, well, you can follow the signs. I don't know. And then I eventually just said, you know what, I'm going in the same exact direction. It was so beautiful out. And I said, I'll walk with you. So I walked with her. She was a 21-year-old girl from Cambridge, Massachusetts, works in 7-Eleven, had never been to New York City. And I was sort of like, just lived in Cambridge for 21 years and never made it to New York City. I mean, that was kind of a really foreign concept, I think, for, again, everyone in this room. But we have to know that this market is out there, and it was a sense of sort of, okay, well, what actually got her to travel was because she knew someone in New York City who she wanted to see. And for 21 years, the idea that New York was a 4-hour bus ride away, she always wanted to go to New York. She always said she felt like people always told her she had a New York style because she's very fashionable. All these things, but she'd never made it to, she never got on that bus. But she did because she knew someone. And I think this is something that all of the existing travel search and booking options don't take into account. And that's the fact that people care about who they're seeing. It's the #1 reason people travel. And right now, people will ask you for the dates you want to travel, for the location you want to travel, but no one will ask you who you want to see. So that's broadly the aim of TripCommon. So yeah, this is a bit of a story. This used to be the view from my balcony. I lived in Istanbul. It was pretty great. I had a nice life over there. But I definitely, this checklist from before, I fit all the categories, and I thought I had an idea that, could change things. So yeah, I just thought, okay, we've got all of these tremendously fragmented parts of the group travel planning thing. So when you're saying, okay, I want to see this person, how do I know where they are? How do I coordinate with them? And you have to go through at least 3 of these. And I figured you shouldn't really have to. Yeah, sorry, so I'm sitting there in Istanbul with my first world problems thinking, oh, we're going to, how do we solve this? I happened to notice that there was a Lean Startup Machine workshop happening in Istanbul. I don't know if any of you have heard of Startup Weekend or Lean Startup Machine, same idea. 54 hours, you come in on Friday night, you pitch to a group of people, people vote the top 10 ideas, everyone has to join one of their teams, you have 48 hours to put something together, and then on Sunday night you present and there's a contest, and so it's a way to just sort of build a company in 48 hours. Again, if you haven't done something like this before, I think it is totally worth the sacrifice of a weekend, or in my case, 2. Amazing way to sort of get an idea of what you actually need to do and sort of really go through this mental exercise. So I did that. Still in Istanbul, really enjoying the life. Decided to try and validate this idea, figure out whether it was worth trying to build. Found a co-founder, put it together. We entered a T-Hack, which is a travel industry hack sponsored by T-News, which is, I would say, the preeminent source of information for the travel tech industry. It was in London, we entered, we won, which was great, and at that point I said, okay, I'm going to stop doing what the other stuff I'm doing, and I'm going to try and build this. And my co-founder did as well. Co-founders are crucial. More about that another time. But still in Istanbul, really enjoying the view from my balcony. But anyway, we explain a little bit more what TripCommon is doing. I can do a quick, let's see. So TripCommon, as originally conceived and is currently built, is very similar to the original concept we have we debuted in T-Hack. So this is live now, so you can feel free to go. I'm also going to sign into Facebook again. Is that okay?
I'll love you that. I take no responsibility for what's going.
Yeah, we had some trouble with the VGA connections earlier.
Thank you to Seth for loaning his laptop.
Thank you very much to Seth. Round of applause for Seth. Sorry, you don't actually have to be logged into Facebook to use this, but makes it much better. Okay. All right. So here, I'm going to log in. Okay, so again, we're asking, where are you? We're in New York City. Does anyone have a friend somewhere else who they would like to see? Like, Istanbul, awesome. Yeah. That's where my brother lives. Yeah. Yes, and then, yeah. So, awesome. That's just what I wanted. Okay. This is what happens with a beta product. Oh, it's such a shame. It works probably 90% of the time. All right, I'm going to show you a screencast because. Yeah, might as well. Because it is cool to see it live. Okay. Who has another friend somewhere else who would like to see?
Boston. Boston or Cambridge.
Okay. Oh, awesome. Okay. We will go with the screencast then. Okay. Oh. All right. So here we go. This is my co-founder put this together, so I'm not exactly sure. Okay, he's doing Amsterdam, which is where he lives, and Boston. Cool. I think he's thinking about a summer trip. I don't know, possibly the background image motivated it. So he's searching for, it looks like July 3rd to July 10th. And you'll get an output of suggested places that you both can get easily and cheaply. It's displaying the average price here. So to San Francisco, it's going to cost him $760 from Amsterdam and whatever makes average of $510 from New York. Sorry, from Boston. But we also have this ability to then create a sort of shared trip bucket that you can easily share with the person that you're planning on traveling with. So you can drag and drop the places you're interested in. New York, obviously appealing, less appealing for me in Boston. You know, I want to go somewhere more exotic. San Francisco, that would be cool. Amsterdam, okay. He obviously doesn't want to get on a plane, so I just have to go over and see him. And you can add comments, communicate back and forth. He's suggesting visiting Dan, who's our another person on our team in San Francisco. He's gonna send it to me, g@tripcommon.com. Totally email me. And this is now my email, I guess. So I see he said, oh, okay, why don't we go and take this trip together? Log in. Sorry, this is kind of slow. Again, first time we're doing this. Sorry we couldn't do it live. And I'm coming in, I'm thinking, okay, well, I might want to travel slightly different dates. So I'm searching for the same thing, but I'm looking a little earlier. But what we do have is we have the same shared trips bucket. So we can, I'm thinking maybe Chicago would be fun. So I can drag that in there as well. It has his saved trips because I followed the link that was in the email. This displays your Facebook friends who live in the given city. So I've got this friend in Chicago, and I'm like, oh, we could all just go and crash on that person's couch. Maybe it's a mutual friend of ours. This is just an example of some of the functionality. You can change the order of things. Okay, I guess that's it. So TripCommon as it has been. Actually, does anyone want to ask anything or?
And I'm sorry, I didn't get what is the problem you're solving exactly?
It's that you want to travel with someone, and you are not sure where or when to travel, and you want to be able to communicate about the
So it's
options.
collaborative trip planning.
Yeah.
Are you sharing screens?
We're not. It's a unique URL. So, but it's not. We're working on getting the absolutely simultaneous. Sorry, MC Hammer is a little distracting.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. We're working on getting the exact sort of Google Docs style simultaneous screen sharing.
So it's progressive, not interactive.
I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you do it, and then I do it, and then she does it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's continuously updated, so it's all linked to this unique URL. And the trouble is, if both of you are on it at the exact same time right now, it gets a little confused. But
are you pulling the prices from the GDS?
we are not, in fact. We, for a long time, built out a screen scraper, but we've now worked towards a partnership, which I can't quite announce yet, but we're working with the second largest meta search engine in the world, so you can probably figure out which one that is, and they're providing all of our data now. So the price accuracy is very good. They're a very strong brand, and hopefully we'll be able to announce it soon.
So, just for GDS, the question, do you have to, let's say people are going to do a lot of searches and planning the trip, and then you said somebody will look for 3 hours trying to find the cheapest deal. How do they charge? Do they charge per hit or what you book? How does it work?
Yeah, this is part of the reason that GDSs are so scary and difficult, is that they will charge per search that you're doing, and if we're talking about a search like I just did, we're saying Boston to, say, a dozen destinations, Amsterdam to a dozen destinations, that's going to get very expensive very quickly. So we've actually built out a prediction engine that works on historical fare pricing. So what we provide when you first see it is an estimate based on some cached fares. We have both historical fares, and then we also have a very recent data dump from our partners, and that gives us sort of prices that have been queried within the last 24 hours, which is a pretty decent proxy. And then you can also press refresh price and get the up-to-date, and that's the only time we would do a live GDS call.
The arrangement that GDS has or airlines have with GDS, are those deals, do they prevent the airline from working with independent vendors directly? Or is there a restriction? Or
I'm not completely sure, but the question of
all the airlines.
Yeah, the question of making a different connection with every single airline, I mean, it's just prohibitive. I mean, because everyone has slightly different, really antiquated systems.
The airlines would love for you to query them directly so that they don't have to pay the GDSs when you buy the ticket, because that costs them a lot. But it's very difficult as a individual developer building out a site. Even the big companies, the Orbitz, Travelocity, those guys, I mean, there was a huge lawsuit where American Airlines was trying to force people to connect directly. I think it was Travelocity, I think.
Yeah.
And Travelocity pulled the American fares off as part of this fight. Like, it was that big a deal. And it's very, very complicated and difficult to do versus just going to one GDS and getting all the data.
Also, the
I think that's an
destination.
opportunity.
What are you going to do?
Travelocity, American said you have to go direct connect, and Travelocity said, well, while we're trying to negotiate this, we're not going to sell any of your tickets. They put them back.
Because they pulled up from some other flight search engines too.
Yeah.
So I was,
That?
Is there any concern building a business considering the razor-thin margins in air bookings?
That they're raising the
So
margins.
it's razor-thin margins
Razor-thin margins.
in air.
Oh, absolutely.
So even if you make a big business, the margins that you'll be making
Are really small.
are really small.
You make volume.
You can, yeah, again, it's either a volume play. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of businesses, a lot of media companies, for example, are monetizing almost exclusively on on advertising revenue, which is second, which are cents or fractions of a cent per click. And so we're looking at commissions anywhere from a few cents to $15. So yes, the margins are thin, but I think personally that obviously we hope to move into hotels and build out a sort of more full, comprehensive, one-stop shop type of deal. The margins on hotels are a lot bigger. I think if you can solve the flight thing, it's the hardest problem, but that's why we're tackling it first. I think it's the most decisive way to get people in the door.
So in terms of revenue models that you guys have thought out, it sounds like you thought about some sort of small CPC or CPA advertising.
Yeah.
What kind of other models have you layered on to the?
There are definitely arguments for. The traditional way that, for example, Kayak and everyone is making their money is either through referral affiliate marketing, and that's what we're doing right now. There isn't a precedent for people who will pay for a premium search product. There is a precedent for people who will pay for a premium travel service product, and that's TripIt Pro, which has done pretty well. And I think there is space, again, a lot of people are like, you would never, for offering a sort of pro version of TripCommon that enables you to sort of do further things, to be able to save things. We also create price alerts, and I think there's a possibility that we would work towards sort of monetizing direct from the consumer like that.
And then in terms of, I'm sorry, I have a secondary question on top of that. In terms of the roadmap for that, what's your time frames, or your time frame in terms of rolling some of the stuff out with the hotel, and then completing the flight stuff, and getting it out of the beta? Just curious about the time.
We have, I would be very happy to sort of discuss it with you in detail. We have sort of various things, but there's also the nature of a startup is, you set goals.
Sure.
You usually exceed them by 2 to 5 times as much as you think you will. But we're working on, we were planning on getting hotels out this month. We've actually worked with Expedia Affiliate Network in the past, and it's pretty easy to layer those on. So that would be an easy fix, but I'd be happy to talk more.
Sure.
How many people do you have working?
Have working on
How
it, right?
many?
We're sort of 4, and a few other people who are trying out various roles.
In terms of roles with that, what is your split in terms of like dev versus operations and marketing, etc.?
We're 2 devs, me,
Okay.
which would be business development, and marketing to a degree, but I've also started working, someone who's recently joined us who's really focusing on marketing and product placement and email marketing and stuff like this, which I didn't know much about. But we're obviously, like every other startup out there, we're always in need of more engineers, so we're looking for more talent in that respect. Yes.
Just in your space, or the space you're trying to create, do you have competitors? And I always worry about, let's say Google. I read today that they bought 4 doors and they sold it back to the founders because they just want to get the social data. So.
Farmers. Yeah. There are definitely a lot of people working in the group travel planning space, a lot of very small players. There's one that came out of New York's Entrepreneurs Roundtable Accelerator called Jetaport. They've got a pretty interesting product. There were a whole slate of ones prior to the financial crisis. There was something called Triparama, which is still up there and functional. A lot of them have different functionalities, and just like there were lots of different social networks or lots of different other things, we're trying to hit the Facebook strategy or whatever, but there are a lot of different ways that you can approach the problem. So.
Beyond hotels, are you looking at doing what to do in the city, restaurants and?
Yeah, I feel like that is more a thing that makes sense to partner with another organization that does that well, whether it's a local guide company like Gidsy or TripPod or some of these other ones, but definitely sort of finding ways to explore the city and figure out what you're going to do there. I think the sort of itinerary creation or sort of sharing a bucket list of things that you're interested in doing is applicable to a lot of models. So we've also investigated sort of applying that to
But if you partner with one tour company, I mean, how can you, can you aggregate information from all over the web?
Totally. I mean, there are tour meta searches as well. There's Excursionpedia, which is German-based, but they're all Russian. That's really comprehensive. There are a bunch. There's Viable, Viator, yeah.
What type of partnerships are you looking to build right now?
With other companies?
Other companies?
Yeah. We are most looking, I mean, so we were most focused on a good airline partner, which we've now nailed down, which is great. We're working on, and because I think we're probably going to work with Expedia Affiliate Network, but we're also talking to a few other hotel providers, and we're in the process of evaluating whether it makes sense to diversify more. My instinct is to keep it simple and really master what we're doing right now. But in terms of partnerships, marketing, getting our name out there with the travel blogosphere, I think will be important in sort of building a community around the TripCommon brand. Okay, and, oh, one more.
Yeah. You talked about the VFR market. I just wondered if you did any research around how likely people are to meet in a third location. Because that kind of doesn't seem like VFR in some ways.
Right. There is, what didn't show up in the search, or maybe wasn't highlighted in the search, is that your home locations are always included in the search results. So, for example, that search was for Amsterdam and Boston. Amsterdam was one of the results. But we're also sort of, I think there is something fun about highlighting, like, actually, even cheaper, because it's always doing it by average price. For Amsterdam, it would be the cost of me flying from Boston to Amsterdam divided by 2, and even that way, it was considerably more expensive than both of us flying to a third location. So again, it's the sort of idea that gets people to explore more and travel more and maybe go somewhere else. But yeah, it's always an option.
I'm still trying to figure out the logic on it. I mean, maybe I have strange friends, but is this most people would average out and split the cost of a trip?
No, not at all. I think that is totally up to you. That's just a sorting mechanism. That's a way to sort of figure out. And everyone's going to be completely different on that. You might have friends where, or if I'm traveling with my brother, and my brother's a lawyer and I'm a startup banker, so I totally want him to cover my tickets. So maybe let's pay for everything. But everyone's going to determine that differently. This is just a way to rank it. You can also change the filter, so you can say, I want the cheapest one from Boston, so I don't have to spend that much money. But you can pay for your tickets individually. We really, actually, in terms of partnerships, we're also working in building in a distributed payment option, so you can sort of keep a wallet on the site and then buy sort of one click. Where so both people can put in $300, or one person can put in 100, one person can put in the rest, but you don't have to have both people there for booking the ticket.
Have you had a chance to pitch to investors yet?
We're more on that.
Can you repeat the question?
Sorry. He asked if we've been pitching to investors yet.
And the answer was?
I said more on that in a second. Okay. Yes. And
If you're basing a lot of this on historical fares, average fares, most people want cheapest real-time data. Why would people use this site rather than a kayak where they can get exact price in real time?
Well, you can get exact price in real time if you press the refresh button. And I think why people use the site isn't necessarily at the I'm going to search for exactly what flight I'm taking stage. It's at the stage where you're saying, okay, what are our options? And let's communicate about those. And frankly, it's entirely possible that people then do go and do their search on kayak and buy on kayak, and that's a danger in this space, and we have some ways that we're trying to work to combat that. Because, so if people go and book on kayak, then kayak gets the commission instead of TripCommon. But there are a few ways to work around that, but I don't want to get too deep. Yes.
Okay, so you're 9 months in, and we have tons of questions about your current concept.
Yeah.
But can you talk about what you did month 1 of kind of where you were from kind of conceiving the idea to kind of building the team, building the site, kind of what that process was?
Sure, yeah. I had this idea. I was trying to reach out. I started to try and reach out to, I did the startup weekend stuff. So that was sort of like getting a taste of what it was like to put this together. Met some interesting people, one of whom continued to work with me for a bit. But I started to reach out to people who I knew in the entrepreneurial space, people who had been successful there, and also perfect strangers. You'd be surprised. I mean, people are so incredibly giving and of their time, and if you come to them with a question, they'll generally want to answer it, which is nice. A really big change, I think, between sort of this industry and a lot of the corporate world where you have to go through all these protocols. Like, I've literally called up the CEO of a company that I want to talk to, or emailed him and tried to figure out if I could meet, and generally they say yes. It's really amazing what you get if you ask for it. So I reached out, and I also started sending out an email because I was looking for engineering help to build up my initial concept. And at that point, I was like, okay, I have a really sweet apartment, and I have a lot of airline miles. So what I said is, I will fly you to Istanbul and give you an apartment for a week or 2 weeks in exchange for coming and helping me build this proof of concept, ideally in time for this hack in London. And I got a few bites, not very many terribly interesting ones, but I got a few. I advertised on, honestly, I don't even remember which websites I used, but sort of places where hackers congregate. And I also sent one to an email list of some friends from college, a lot of whom were sort of tech inclined, and I said, anyone want to, and 3 separate people emailed me, and they were like, you should talk to Annie's boyfriend, Timo. He's really great, and he would probably be interested in this. So I'm typing up this email to Timo, who I've never met, and I'm like, hey, you know, your girlfriend's cool, and want to help me build something. And I was trying to figure out a way to make this sound less weird. And I get this email in my inbox, and it's from Timo, and it says, hi, my girlfriend says you're kind of cool and that you have this idea. So I ended up flying up to Amsterdam because Europe is wonderful. There's like a 30-euro flight from Istanbul to Amsterdam, which is like one end of the continent to the other. And meeting with him, we got on like a house on fire. And we've been working together since then. But finding an amazing co-founder, I'm lucky to have done that, and I would encourage you to do your absolute best to meet other people. I went to tons of meetups, I went to all these things, but work your connections, send emails, and when you find something, pursue it and commit to it. Okay. All right.
What's your customer acquisition strategy over here? How are you bringing people in? You know, we just launched recently, and we're kind of at that stage where we're trying to figure out how to get more people to come in.
Yeah.
So what's your strategy there?
There is customer acquisition, a gigantic question that people should consider from the very beginning. I think it's really important to how you build your product as a whole. We have, in terms of, everyone wants to say, oh, the product is going to go viral, build in a viral loop. This is something that's like, oh, well, you have to invite a friend or something, but that does not a viral loop make. I learned after lots of people told me this. So we've actually built out something slightly different, which is sort of phase 2 of TripCommon, which I'm going to get into in a second, in terms of helping that viral loop. But in terms of, don't discount SEO. We're working, trying to get sort of more mentions. The largest spikes of traffic that we've seen on our websites have generally been stories.
But don't you guys run into an issue with, because you have to sign in, once you sign in, then SEO is actually not looking at what's happening after you're signed in. It only sees what's before.
The point is to get people to the landing page and to have stories built up around TripCommon and what it does. And so we've been working a bit on that, sort of targeting long tail search terms and building out our social strategy. Social media is absolutely incredible for generating interest as well, and just being present there and having a longer presence there. When we established our accounts, we had no idea what we were doing, but they were there, and they've been starting, that all helps with your rankings. So what we're concentrating on are working on our viral acquisition strategy, building up links in the travel community, and also, I mean, certain partnerships. We do think our airline partner will want to promote us to a degree and some other things like that.
You talk a little bit about like your experience and things that you've learned in terms of product development, the user experience of the site. Are you getting feedback, and how are you adapting it? And how are you deciding to build new features?
Yeah. Well, we have definitely gotten a lot of feedback, positive and negative, about the actual concept of as a whole, and there's a reason. So the short answer to your question about seeking investment is we have definitely talked to investors, but more in this sort of stage of asking for advice, asking for feedback on the product. We took a small round of sort of friends and family financing, and also, I mean, I worked for a while, I don't need to draw a salary, so our burn rate is low, which is nice. Lessons learned is that sort of the concept is hard for a lot of people to grasp, which is part of where the twist in my story is coming. But also in terms of, I found just getting it out there are a lot of people who are tempted to keep their startup in stealth forever. Like until it's perfect, they're not going to put their baby out into the world. And this is like, you're just going to like homeschool your child forever. And like there are some homeschool children that are like totally awesome. But I think it can also, like being out there and the socialization is really, really great. Getting feedback is tremendous and really instructive in sort of what you take back into the startup. So we waited for a while before putting our beta live. It is totally not perfect, as you saw earlier tonight. But we're glad it's out there and we're getting sort of live feedback from people and people helping us prioritize what we need to do next. Yes, Doctor.
If you look at doing a Kickstarter or some other sources of money for asking the members for money.
It's an interesting idea. I mean, crowdfunding is, frankly, it's always seemed like kind of a racket to me. Like people are giving you money and you're not giving them any equity, which is, so I mean, but
that's actually, that's totally acceptable. That's why it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something. Yeah, I didn't need to say that. We're not above. Sorry?
I helped build out couchsurfing.com.
Amazing.
So I have a lot of experience understanding what might work, what definitely doesn't work.
Yeah.
It probably still doesn't.
Well, I would love to talk to you then. Why not?
Sorry, what did you say you built out? Couch surfing. Okay.
Also, couchsurfing.com versus
Well, I help.
Huh?
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. I know. I don't want to delay your return to the booth for too long, so I'm just going to finish up the presentation a little bit. Okay, so I've done the demo. Okay, so I moved to. You asked about the early months of the company. So I was in Istanbul for a while. Found it was a really small market and really difficult to connect with people, and we were moving very, very slowly. So I decided, like anyone should know, you can go back, sorry. To move to Silicon Valley and see what we could make of ourselves there. And we found a lot of people who were really, really enthusiastic and really great. And it was an amazing incubator and an amazing time to sort of see what that ethos is like and gain a lot of sort of confidence and enthusiasm that totally we're on the right path. Then I came to New York and I got sort of more of this reaction. And ultimately, I found that this was much more useful because I still wasn't exactly sure what I was selling. So you can go to the next. Okay, so this is, okay, I think I'm missing a foot. Anyway, so we've recently come to this idea, we're coming back to this idea, the fundamental part of TripCommon is that we're helping you find out where your friends are and how you can travel to see them. Does this necessarily mean that you're going to be doing a search, all this thing? So we wanted to build out something slightly different, and coincidentally there was another T-hack that we could use as a way to test our proof of concept. It's actually happening right now in Sydney, and I'm going to be presenting it in like an hour via Skype. But I'm going to present it to you first and see what you think. And you guys can go to this too. I make no guarantee that it will actually. But we built this over the last 3 days. So we're building out. This is something that is connecting to my Facebook. I gave it permission before. It won't do this automatically. But yeah, at tripcommon.com/map. And it is locating where my friends are. And you can also do this with LinkedIn, maybe see where your contacts are. And
in that book, it's a really slow process, so the client-side stuff is my fault. So.
No. Okay. Also, like I said, we built this in 3 days, and so we're still trying to figure out. But what we can do, which is kind of cool about this, is say, okay, well, let's see if Istanbul works this time. Because I used to live in Istanbul, so I have a bunch of friends there. So we're enabling you to visualize where your friends are, and we are also, this is one way, but we are telling you how to get from door to door to see this person. So it's saying from New York, I need to take a $7 train to JFK. It's the one-way flight trip, and then a 35-minute, $5 train into the center of Istanbul to see my friends. Sorry? Turkish, yeah. Well, it also hasn't put in the time, so this is probably like, this is the low price of the year. But we're working towards, I think, well, feedback? Anyone? Thoughts?
Wow.
Got a lot of friends.
Okay.
Google Maps technology, or do you have proprietary software?
We are working with a bunch of different.
OpenTrip Planner?
Sorry?
OpenTrip Planner, anything?
OpenTrip Planner I'm not familiar with.
It's the primary backend for mass trends around the world.
Oh, great. Okay, interesting. We're calling on Road to Rio at the moment. Sorry.
Most of the German cities.
Okay, open travel open trip planner. Great. I will note it.
It'd be great to build in some filters to be set up
Totally.
filters in.
Is there like a
dates?
Is there like a people I actually like on Facebook versus just my friends?
Well, it's definitely filters. Definitely, like I want to filter for, you know, like all of my single male friends or something like this, or I want to filter by all the people I went to college with, or all of these things. We also haven't built out yet, but there should be a way to query for live flight prices today, or for whatever dates you're considering, and also a way to just message this person or post on their wall, hey, I was thinking of you, look, we could travel. Also to do the TripCommon search, you know, to be able to say, okay, hey, you and I, we could meet in Kiev for this much, why don't we, you know, but in terms of getting people to generate interest themselves, we think this is a much easier way to onboard people to the process.
Can you drag down on the map and then prices changes for two people?
Sorry?
Like, can you just, like you drag down and your friend drag down, and then you meet at a certain point and then it shows prices?
The prices for both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we should be able to build that out in more days than 3. That's, yeah, for sure. Like you said, I mean, we still believe very strongly in this idea of meeting in a third place. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun, and it's also interesting, I think. I haven't had a single person who's done this who hasn't sort of realized, like, oh my God, I had no idea. I had a friend in Alaska or in Swaziland, and then you click on the icon, you figure out who it is, things like this, and it's a fun, you know, it's a fun tool that people seem to really enjoy playing with. The user numbers that we've seen in the beta testers, being the 10 or so family and friends that I've sent this to, is that they.
Ooh, what's happening here?
I tried to zoom out.
It's zooming out.
Yeah.
It's a netbook, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, and this is pretty cool. I think a lot of people you might realize that your friends are more distributed. Yeah.
Are you sort of targeting to like a specific age group? Because I mean, I'm just thinking for me, like I have probably like 200 Facebook friends, and I definitely would want to travel with like most of them.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Like for me, I'm not sure how relevant it would be, just because I think I know who I would want to travel with.
Totally. I mean, I think we've also talked about having an idea of setting up sort of preferred travelers, If we can tap into Facebook's, you know, I don't know if you use like the close friends or things like that.
Yes,
filter by that. And also what we can do though, one thing that we already are doing to a degree is with Facebook, we have tremendous information about our users, about the locations of their friends, and just being able to send a proactive trip alert that says, hey, you have 42 friends in San Francisco. Have you considered flying there? Look, in 3 weeks' time, you can go there for a weekend for $300, and that's 20% cheaper than it is usually, or something like this. Sending those sort of like, but when people are logging through Facebook, we have their email address, which is nice, so we can send them this totally unobtrusive and totally unsubscribe-friendly emails, but as a way to sort of increase retention.
Yeah, I think I think you should consider that as to using your advantage. So, just a little feedback. I mean, I've raised money too in this space and another startup. The business model is kind of tough. I think you have a lot of problems. And the problem with most startups is that they piggyback on the big players, they make nothing, and so you just have to make a huge scale, but you never can make as much as they can. But why not create a system where if she has 1,500 friends, create a stay with her friends application, where you say, oh, I want to stay here, and so friends say, sure, I'll offer you this, and now you get to stay there. So it's not Airbnb, you're not thinking with strangers, but you're providing a way where 1,500 friends, and if I want to go to Istanbul and I don't know anybody there, but in my Facebook I do, I reach out through this application and say, hey, I want